Welcome to Pandemic Ponderings. I'm Rick Jordan. Moses had it made in the shade with lemonade. At least he must have felt that way. He was on top of the world. Life had started rough for him. The Pharaoh had determined to kill all Hebrew boys. But Moses' mother put her infant child in a watertight basket with a blanket and a prayer. She put her baby's little ark near the place where the princess bathed. And when the princess saw that sweet baby, she found a way to save his life. In Exodus chapter 2, beginning with verse 9, we read, "Take this baby and nurse him for me," the princess told the baby's mother. "I will pay you for your help." So the woman took her baby home and nursed him. Later, when the boy was older, his mother brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her own son. The princess named him Moses, for she explained, "I lifted him out of the water." So Moses was raised among royalty and was treated as royalty. How does this happen to some people? The powers of the world seem set against them, and yet somehow they not only endure, they thrive and flourish. Abraham Lincoln fought poverty and ignorance, had some failed elections, and yet finally was elected President of the United States. And he saved the unity of the United States and set in motion the emancipation and freedom of slaves. 100 years later, a Black man, a descendant of slaves, also fought against poverty and ignorance and prejudice and violence. John Lewis was beaten as he led a civil rights march in Selma, Alabama. He was beaten down, but he rose again and eventually became one of our country's greatest leaders. Abraham and John were in the same boat as Moses. Yes, Moses had made it to the top, but then something happened. Picking up again the story from Exodus chapter 2. Many years later, when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his own people, the Hebrews, and he saw how hard they were forced to work. During his visit, he saw an Egyptian beating down one of his fellow Hebrews. After looking in all directions to make sure no one was watching, Moses killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. The next day, when Moses went out to visit his people again, he saw two Hebrew men fighting. "Why are you beating up your friend?" Moses said to the one who had started the fight. The man replied, "Who appointed you to be our prince and judge? Are you going to kill me as you killed that Egyptian yesterday?" Then Moses was afraid, thinking, "Everyone knows what I did." And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what had happened, and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian. When Moses arrived in Midian, he sat down by a well. Moses found it necessary to socially distance himself from Pharaoh. But not just Pharaoh, from everyone he had known since childhood, from the power and pleasures and prestige of the palace, from friends, from the only life he had known. Moses' world came crashing down around him. It was unexpected and unplanned. Now, we might say that it was not undeserved. He got what he asked for. You can't just kill a man and get away with it. He deserved his isolation and his fear and his loss. Paul says in the book of Romans, the wages of sin is death. That death might be worse than a physical death sometimes. It could be remaining physically alive, but losing all that made life worthwhile. When bad things happen to us, we often feel that there must be a cause and effect. Many times that is true, as it was with Moses, but many times it is not true. The COVID-19 pandemic, for example, has made a lot of people very sick and has taken the lives of many people. And we don't yet know what the long-term result of the pandemic will be. But the virus was not sent by God to take out all the bad people, the people who deserved to die. Jesus said, "The rain falls on the just and the unjust." So does a pandemic. But here is the grace of God. Moses escapes Egypt after doing an evil thing. He sits by a well, and there he meets a woman who will become his wife. His father-in-law gives him a job tending sheep, and one day while out tending sheep, Moses sees a bush that is burning, and a voice comes from the bush telling Moses that he is to be the emancipator of his people. He is to be the bridge from slavery to freedom. I wonder how we will see God's compassion and grace when we look back on these pandemic days. Thank you for joining me for Pandemic Ponderings.